Apologies for 9:06. Sorry, I was writing things and trying to find articles and things like that. Welcome to Tuesday and Soccer Down Here. John here, Jarrett there, you there as well. Busy show. It's Thursday. It's not Tuesday. Man, shows you where my brain is this morning. Niall says, yesterday was boring, Jarrett. I don't know if we can match it.
Well, I mean, there's already news out of New England for a signing, so.
Jonathan Mensah.
Yeah, Jonathan Mensah going to New England.
Yep, so.
All right, yay, Caleb Porter.
Yeah, we got that this morning. Busy show on our end. Laurel Pfahler dropping by bottom of the hour to discuss what is happening in Cincinnati and the two players that Atlanta United fans are interested in. We'll get into Miles. We'll talk about Brandon Vasquez, and the numbers are kind of drifting out about that. We've got news about other center backs, ones that are actually inbound and heading to Atlanta. And you had come across it yesterday that it looks like Bordeaux fans are pretty mad now that Steen Gregerson looks like he is heading this way.
Yeah, because you're dealing with on one side of it, where you're like, well, I'm sad that you're losing Miles Robinson, who's been here since it was the number 2 draft pick in your first year. But without sounding mean, you like it when someone else is sad if you're gaining their loss.
Yeah. There's that. Right now, the way things are with Gregerson, as we are awaiting the translation, it looks like it's a 4-year deal, and $2 million US would be the number that we are attached to here when it comes to Gregerson and the possible move of Gregerson to Atlanta United. And it's a 4-year deal. $2 million on the transfer, and Bordeaux keeps 10% of the pass. So that's what you're staring at here with someone who is 6'4" and can help you with your set pieces, because we all know it's about set pieces. So $2 million, 10% of the pass, 4-year deal is what we're looking at for the probability of when this becomes officially official with Steen Gregerson. We'll see what.
Well, it's going to be it's a different world if for no other reason we no longer get Darren Eales with Da Vinci Code, like pulling Dan Brown Da Vinci Code.
How would you if you were Darren, or if you were in the past, how would you
I don't think there's anybody like Darren.
How would you tease Five Stripes Don't Stop with Steen Gregerson? You have a bottle of Bordeaux? Is it a bottle of Bordeaux on a table? Is that what you unpour? Do you pour some of the wine out of a bottle of Bordeaux into a glass?
I don't know. I would have to think about it. Like, I imagine that I would love to know how much prep went into some of those for Darren. You could do the bottle. See, I'm trying to think what you could do this Norwegian, but I feel like anything that would be locally relevant to Norway would probably go over a lot of our heads, because we are not Norwegian.
Some lutefisk or something,
Yeah.
Speak for yourself about not being Norwegian. That's half of my family, sir.
Oh, well, there you go. So I don't know. You ought to be I don't know how you go about it, but yeah. Well, now we just kind of sit here and wait for the announcement. And it's I think it makes it, whether you intended it to happen this way or not, I think it makes it easier when the outdoor is being pushed open and is actively closing. The indoor is being actively pushed open. I think it makes it psychologically easier to deal with.
Yeah, and you mentioned the folks in Bordeaux being kind of pissed. You're 3 points out of a relegation fight right now. I mean, Ligue 2 in and of itself is a street fight to stay out of the relegation zone. 20 teams, 17, 18, 19, and 20 are the ones that get relegated into the National League. And Bordeaux right now, and they've had to get hot to get out of the relegation discussion, and they're only 3 points out of the relegation discussion. They're in that group that is going to be a part of the drag down all season long. And when you're losing a 6'4" center back, probably, possibly, maybe fairly soon, then I could understand why folks are pretty pissed.
Yeah, like I said, you're going to try and find this balance right now of managing your emotions after a big move. That you have to just kind of roll with. And we'll see how it shakes out. I mean, because things look good or bad on paper, and they're not always like that. So now you just kind of sit back.
Yeah. Niall in this morning, he says that Gregerson looks like a proper defender. My crazy early prediction of the new year is that he can be a top MLS defender.
Physically, for sure. Want to see how he moves. Want to see how he forms that partnership at the back. And builds that chemistry and to see what it all looks like. But yeah, you like what you've gotten out of France's second division so far, and it's the kind of place that you can go. Yeah, Abby, he's 6'4". He's about my size.
1.91 meters. Yes, he's 6'4".
He is one of the lighthouses of society. We all are. At a certain height, people just look for us like a lighthouse on the rocks. We are the guideposts, whether we like it or not. Sometimes, but these are the kind of places that I think you like to go and find, not just second division France, but like a team that's kind of scuffling. That, oh God, we might go down. We might have to sell people because we won't be able to afford all of them.
Correct.
And those are the places you can shop and you can find a deal. And hey, I see you might be losing some money there, huh?
Yeah, you might
could help you out there.
Yeah, yeah. You might be in a bit of financial difficulties. Would you like some kind of a cushion, perhaps, to help you along in this time of need? But no, that's where we are in these things. You're looking for distressed assets. You're looking for those places where you can sit there and a little basic cable, a little HBO, a little help a brother out, and with Bordeaux in a relegation fight, they could use all of the money that they could, and decent piece of business, 10% of the pass. You never know, but with Gregerson, you get 10% of the pass, $2 million US, and that $2 million US could help you bring in some players in the January window that could. You could bring in bulk to help you when it comes to staving off relegation in Ligue 2. So, no, it's good business on any club that wants to sit there and go and fish and go, okay, y'all might need a little help financially. Y'all might be in a little bit of trouble. You might spot of trouble. Why don't we help you out? Help me help you. Help me help you. And so this is what you end up with right now. So we're looking at the possibility, probability, maybe, surely, sooner rather than later, probably. Steen Gregerson, 4-year deal from our friends at L'Equipe, and they would be a tier A source when it comes to these kinds of things. So 4-year deal, $2 million on the purchase, 10% on the pass is kept by Bordeaux. Gregerson in, Miles is out. Like I said, Laurel Pfahler coming up at the bottom of the hour, and we'll discuss it more in depth with her when she comes in. And it seems like Jared Atlanta is in that $2 million range. Schlees was being discussed in that $2 million range out of Legia Warsaw. Gregerson, $2 million seems to be that number. And, you've got teams out in Los Angeles that want to drop 10 on strikers. If Atlanta wants to drop, 10 and do it over 5 players, you're helping out your entity on the whole, as opposed to just bringing in the one dude. You're looking at this economically, and you're looking at filling need. So this is the Atlanta way that we have come to see.
Yeah, and that's kind of your wheelhouse because you can sign someone to a 4-year deal and spread out the money and hit TAM pretty well. And like we talked about, not even just for this move, but Atlanta had made a bunch of moves to grab some GAM,
Mm-hmm.
and you're creating space where you can, and then hopefully able to go make moves like this and have guys on TAM deals. And I don't know, hey, MLS, maybe expand things next year, even though you passed on it this year.
Oh, you're getting me fired up about passing over ideas and things like that. Like you had discussed yesterday about, ¿por qué no los dos? Why can't you just work with? Why can't you have your U22s all three? Why can't you have all three of your DPs? It's like they stumble in their own way sometimes. It's like they can't get out of their own way when they're trying to figure out how to improve things and bring in more talented players. It's like it's an easy fix. You work on the cap and you expand both of those elements.
Yeah, and I mean, you're still going to try and continue to expand. You're going to try and continue to push the limits on your roster to bring in the best talent you can. And this is why things like the academy are important, where um, you can have a left back who is playing on a homegrown deal that takes some of the sting out of things. You can have a backup midfielder in Jay Fortune who, I don't know, man. If you don't get Sleege, I mean, do you start Jay?
Yeah,
I mean, that's
I think that's where you're headed.
But that's another spot where you've got homegrown production. You've got a U22 now who has come good, even though it took a couple years with Edwin Mosquera. Like you want to. That's why you push the academy and you push guys that you had like a Marcedich when he was here, because you find deals like that. And Marcedich, like, look, I mean, Marcedich wasn't getting time at the end of the year, which, I mean, it makes sense. You had the growth of Jay Fortune. You had the changes in the midfield. And I literally like DeMar Sadic. He's also an incredibly intelligent player and really fun to talk to.
Yes.
However, when he was here, you loved it. And you love guys like that because they weren't on an extravagant number, and you got production that outweighed their cost. And you have to have that in a cap league. You have to have situations where a guy's production outperforms his cost.
Stadich was making 85.4.
Yeah, it's insane. And again, he was a backup central midfielder at times, a third string CM for this club. But he also came in and played like as a 10, as an 8-10 combo when you needed it at times. But you had to have guys like that. And it helps when you get production out of Tyler Wolf, like we said, out of the academy, and it makes it easier, I think, if you can find those to then allocate more money to these TAM deals like a Gregerson, and then for Cincinnati to be able to allocate 4 Miles, because it's it's going to be a different setup than what he was playing here. Like I don't think he's going to be like charging up the field, but
no.
Like it sits back a bit more. But they've gotten great production out of their DPs, and then found good value in other places that allows them to have more resources to allocate in specific areas. That's what you got to do. It's what you like to do. It's what you like to see. It's the anti-Toronto as Toronto is currently constructed. But as we discussed with Dwayne last month, it feels like Toronto is about to be in a we're just gonna burn this down, collect the insurance money, and see what we can do.
Yes. Like I said, and where Miles is concerned, and like I said, we'll get into this with Laurel Pfahler when she joins us a little after bottom of the hour. We don't know, once again, with the number, with Miles, we don't know what we don't know. We anticipate, we have circumstantial evidence. We have the notion that Miles wanted Walker Zimmerman money. That much we know. And we talked about that yesterday. He wanted a 30% increase in his salary figure from 1.4. He could be offered up to 1.65. Where that goes from there is Atlanta United at the beginning of last season, Jared, if memory serves, had a deal on the table. Hey, here. Miles eventually would say no, but Nothing, no real negotiation during the season. It's on the table. Whether they talked about it or not, we don't know what to the extent it was or if they did. And high TAM deal. Atlanta United said, look, beginning of the season, somewhere in there, here's the contract. Here it is. Miles said no. Miles wanted a lot more than what Atlanta United was willing to offer in a high TAM deal. Like I said, Miles was looking for 1.8 to 2. He's looking 1.7, 1.8 base. Atlanta could not even go there. What we do know is he's not getting that in Cincinnati. Tom Bogert said that yesterday. He's not getting that kind of money in this deal. 1 year plus an option, not getting what he wanted or what he was looking for in a contract figure. Atlanta gives him a number. Miles says no. Miles goes shopping. PSV apparently was the only team in Europe that was interested that we heard about. Don't know what the figures were there. Apparently, Miles and his representation weren't warm to that, whatever that number was. So we'll try and find out as we go what it was that attracted Miles to this particular situation.
Some people want to change, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And maybe this was one of those things where, he let them know, like, hey, I want to go try something different.
Mm-hmm.
I know Doug Roberson reported yesterday that, there was no, hard feelings between Miles or the club. And it might have been one of those things where they said, look, the contract's on the table. We'd love to have you. If it's not going to work for you, then we're going to start looking, because the way this has unfolded, it kind of feels like this was always going to be the end game.
Yeah.
And, that they said, look, if you're going to go, that's okay. We're going to start looking.
Mm-hmm.
You do you.
Yeah.
And I think I'm still a bit surprised he didn't end up in Europe, but with Miles, I will always, because I know people were very mad about Atlanta not getting something for him.
Yeah.
But man, blowing that Achilles last year just absolutely shot the plans to hell, as we have talked about numerous times. Because what you had potentially was game plan would have been 2022. Miles Robinson builds on his 2021 season, plays really well. Goes to the World Cup with the U.S. national team, plays in the World Cup with the U.S. national team, builds a bunch of interest, domestic and abroad, and then before the 2023 season, you sell him with 1 year left on his deal. You make a profit, and he gets his big move and probably a big bump in salary, and you get a big profit out of it.
Correct.
Instead, his Achilles goes boom like a piece of Acme that's been recalled.
Acme.
And then you're in a situation where he's in his last year, and he is on a prove it year.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, like, yeah, he's in the last year of his deal, but it's like a prove it. He's trying to
justify a salary number.
Yeah, he's trying to show you what he can be in that year coming back. And we talked about this with Joseph coming back, and Joseph's knee is complicated. Joseph's knee was very complicated, obviously. It's numerous surgeries. I think you could also look at Ronald Acuna to switch sports into baseball. It took Acuna, he blew his knee apart in 21. 22 was kind of for him, especially by his standards. And there were times he didn't play, back-to-back games, and recovery was tough. And Achilles are no joke. If you told me that Miles looks more like himself, what we've associated with him in the past in 24, and he gets more into 18 to 24 months post-surgery, I wouldn't argue with you. I want to see it. Mm-hmm. But the further he gets away from that surgery, I think then you end up with, a better chance to get back to what he showed you and what made him such an exciting piece for not just U.S. soccer, but for Atlanta and now for Cincinnati. And it's a 1 year deal with an option. Mm-hmm. he could it could be one of those things where if he just balls out this year,
Yeah.
maybe they get offers, and if they don't like any of them, they can trigger the option, bring him back next year, and see where things go. But I don't hate him for going there, not at all. So I mean, go chase go chase the man, go chase what money you can, especially if the money is going to be similar.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he went up there, had a great visit with Pat Noonan, felt really comfortable with everything, and you're with a club that just won Supporter Shield.
Yeah,
it's hard to knock it. I don't blame people. Like I know we do this because I know we do this in the NBA, where we have this weird contradiction in the NBA of like we judge players by their rings. Their legacies are defined by their rings, but then we slander them for chasing rings.
Yeah.
As if like they're just supposed to magically like it's like it's preordained, like they're magically supposed to be drafted onto a team with a functioning GM and a functioning head coach that isn't eating glue.
Yeah.
And that they're just supposed to lead them to glory, as opposed to guys move around. They might go somewhere like, hey, this team is on the up and up. This team's on the up.
Yeah.
And I'm feeling really good about it. I went and had a visit with them. I really like the coach. I really like the city. I really liked everything about it. I'm going to go do this. Cool, man. Hey, if you get you more hardware, if that's what you're after, and you're after the money, and you're after a style that's comfortable for you, go live your best life.
You cannot begrudge someone who is chasing after what they wish to chase after. And so we will be getting into that discussion. And since I was late, it makes sense that Laurel Pfahler is early. Absolutely. I start a minute late. Laurel comes in, 2 minutes early into the green room. And so it's all balancing out. And so we welcome for the maiden voyage. It is Laurel Pfahler from Queen City Press. And Laurel, it is Jarrett. It is John. Good morning. Thanks for hanging out with us here at SDH.
Thanks for having me. I always try to jump on early just in case there's any technical difficulties or anything. So,
well, that's usually my fault when it comes to technical difficulties because I'm the most technologically challenged individual on the planet. So
well, I think I could give you a run for that title.
First off, full disclosure, I do subscribe to the Patreon and would recommend anyone who is interested in anything going on up there to subscribe to what you are doing. And I would imagine that yesterday was kind of busy, eh?
Yes, it was. And I was kind of laughing because I did a mailbag answering some reader questions, and it was all about Miles Robinson. How did that visit go? We haven't heard anything. And, what's going to happen with Brandon Vasquez? And so I wrote this mailbag like, oh, everything's kind of up in there. And then, 10 o'clock or whatever it was in the morning, we find out the Miles Robinson deal had gone through. And then I think around 5 or so, Brandon Vasquez was on his way out to Monterey. So yeah, it was a busy day for FC Cincinnati land.
Yeah, we'll get into that in just a sec. Jarrett, your first question for Laurel Pfahler.
Yeah, and so I wanted to kind of get an idea because we have an idea of what the defense looks like going from last year into 2024 and the expectations. How do you think the whole what if we were to look at the whole back line? How do you think it lines up for Cincinnati?
Well, it was really concerning that they were going to be losing Yerson Mosquera. He was on loan from Wolverhampton, and that was a huge hole they were going to have to fill. And Miles Robinson, I think, is probably about as close as you could get to what they got from Yerson Mosquera. He was, Yerson was extremely fast, so a little bit more elite on some of his skill set, but just in I've never seen anyone with that recovery speed. But I think Miles, he can do that too, and he's decent in the air. So I think he really fits in with what they were looking for on their back line. And so they've got, him and Matt Miazga next to each other, I think is going to be a pretty scary defense for opponents to face this year.
How much of that is insurance, knowing that Matt has been known to go a little haywire every once in a while? Obviously, yes, the pairing is meant to be the pairing, but how much of that is also insurance to have experience back there, considering what happened late last year?
Yeah, that was that was the biggest thing. You know, we thought that that FC Cincinnati was going to maybe make a move to bring in another center back last summer. Just, you know, everyone knew that Yersin Mosquera was going to be leaving, and you know, Nick Hagland, he started out. I mean, he's been solid for FC Cincinnati, but we saw a little bit of a drop off after he had a little bit of an injury, and then he ended up with a serious injury. His season ended, had to have surgery, and so there was a big hole. You know, Ian Murphy really stepped up this year. He was one of their draft picks from 2021. Saw a huge jump in year 2 for him, but still, you know, a lot of questions behind him. So the fact that they didn't bring in a center back kind of ended up biting them in the end, because when Matt Miazga wasn't available and then Nick Hagland was injured, it was, you know, they were scrambling, throwing like Alvis Powell in there, who had center back experience, but, you know, that's not his natural position. So, yeah, I think that kind of emphasized that they really needed to bring in an experienced center back this summer or this winter.
Garrett, go for it.
And I wanted to ask about the second team as well, in terms of trying to bring guys up, because I know Cincinnati has only been around for a few years, and I think we sometimes get overexcited about our second teams and our academies producing talent out of the gate, almost to like an unfair degree for some of the kids. But is there anything to be looking for with the second team that could be contributing down the road, even as early as this year, to be playmakers?
That is going to be a big focus this year. They really have not gotten a lot out of their second team. The second team, first of all, they just really haven't signed enough players specifically to that MLS Next Pro roster. So they've relied a lot on the first team backups coming down, and a lot of academy players. And then when the first team was on the road, they didn't want to send their guys down to the MLS Next Pro level. So a lot of times it was really they didn't have anyone on their bench. And so that's a focus for them, is really trying to sign guys that can be specific to that team. And they need to really start developing some of those guys that they can then move up. I mean, we've seen some young guys come from the academy and make that jump to the first team, but that second team, that there's quite a gap, I think, still. So that's going to be a focus. I know one of the promising center backs, Kai Thomas, just departed. So he's not going to be an option for them moving up from that second team. And so there's a lot of work to be done on that roster.
When it comes to Miles, and, you know, here in the Southeast, we follow the Southeastern Conference when it comes to college football. And paraphrasing from Glenn Ross, it's A, always BBC recruiting. You know, you're always recruiting when it comes to these things. We saw how the lighting at TQL welcomed Miles, and you get the wraparound welcome and all those kinds of things. So we knew that the recruiting was going full bore for Miles. What in your mind, and from what you were able to glean, was the attraction for Miles to go to Cincinnati, other than the chance of chasing after another trophy? What were the internal ideas there for Miles to be a part of what Pat Noonan's building?
Yeah, I mean, it's a growing club. I think just a lot of people can see that they're headed in the right direction with their leadership. They've got beautiful facilities. Obviously, that stadium, the lighting is pretty impressive. The last one, I remember that happening, didn't work out in their favor. They were going after Matt Hedges, and that same thing kind of happened last year, where photos popped up of some lighting, and he ended up going to Toronto. But I think that it's, you know, they really wine and dine their recruits, and impressed them with what they had to offer. And I think the guaranteed playing time, you know, if he went to Europe, you don't know that he's gonna have that playing time. And FC Cincinnati ended up coming up with a good offer. I'm not sure quite how they did it, because their budget seems pretty tight, but they made it happen. And I think just, you know, that chance to, the 1 year deal with a 1 year option. It seems like the option year probably kicks him up to a DP level if it kicks in, is my understanding. So I think that kind of provided him the flexibility where if he still wants to go to Europe, which I'm sure he does, you know, the 1 year doesn't prevent him from doing that. He's 26 now, so he can still get to Europe by 27 or 28. I think, you know, that was probably a big part of it.
All right, Jared.
And I actually wanted to ask you about one of my favorite players in Cincinnati that I don't know gets enough respect around the country. But I want to ask you about like what's been the development of the role of Yuya Kubo,
There it
because
is.
he's one that I've been trying to encourage people to steal away from Cincinnati, but no one does it because no one listens to me. But I want to ask you about his development coming from those early days where it was a struggle for Cincinnati to watching, of course, Acosta putting together one of the most insane seasons we've seen last year, but a guy like him who's been there since the beginning and gone through the good and the bad.
Yeah, I mean, his trajectory has been, I mean, I can't believe that after all that he's been through at Cincinnati that he still wanted to come back this year. I mean, it just shows his growth as a player and how much they value him. He started out as a second striker winger and ended up, through 2 coaching changes, the guy that had actually, driven to Belgium to recruit him, Ron Jans, ended up not being his coach after 2 months of him being there. So of Yuya being in Cincinnati. So Jaap Stam ended up converting him to a midfielder and tried him as a defensive midfielder. And obviously those are some rough times through. He arrived in 2020. So 2020 and 2021 were pretty difficult for him, making that adjustment and just being on a team that struggled. And then by last year, Pat Noonan, that's one of the things that's been so key to this team's success is just how Pat Noonan is able to get the best out of the players, just putting them in positions to be more successful. So they really wanted to move Yuya into more of an attacking midfield role. And that was, he ended up being the biggest piece off the bench, consistently performing, coming in for, Junior Moreno, or, if they needed a break for Lucho Acosta, he could fill in there. So, he's been just done everything for FC Cincinnati. And I think that was huge for them to be able to bring him back this year on a cheaper deal.
Laurel, Pfahler, Queen City Press, hanging out with us here on Soccer's Morning Show on SDH. We're going through what happened with Miles yesterday. Since Jared has introduced Yuya Kubo into the conversation, we'll go ahead and get to player number 3 and Brandon Vasquez. Obviously, there's interest from the Atlanta United fans down here as well when it comes to Brandon. Brandon is leaving to Liga MX and bringing a pretty penny in return. What's been the initial response of $7.5 million plus add-ons and a percentage? Did I get that right?
Yeah, so there's it could be up to $8.5 million that they get plus a 10% sell on. So it's a 4-year deal for him, and he is pretty much, from what I was told, tripling his salary based on a lot of taxes are taken out of his salary in the United States. That won't be the case in Mexico. So I think it's about a $1.6 million salary he'll be getting down there, but he keeps more of it. So that was probably enticing to him. He's got a baby on the way, so growing family, that's important, and having that stability as well. And then, he still has goals of going to Europe. So hopefully it's a good situation for him. But in Cincinnati, I think it was a lot of surprise because we've been hearing him talk all along about how he felt like he needed to get to Europe to solidify his place with the U.S. men's national team. And then here he is heading to Mexico. So I think that part of it was a little surprised that he agreed to a deal like that, but seems like, it's a chance for him to further his development with a top Liga MX team. And he'll have, it, from what I understand, kind of a similar striker partnership as to what he had with Brenner last year when we really saw the best of Brandon Vasquez, or 2022, I guess 2 years ago.
It's all good. Jared, go for it.
So how do, I guess from your perspective, how do you balance things if you're Cincinnati? You just watched, unfortunately, the Hellas Real rival lift a trophy, lift MLS Cup, while you had Supporters Shield. How do you balance we need to continue to build this team in a stable and progressive way with not like overreacting of we need to do something and we need to bury Columbus under 6 feet of dirt?
Well, the fans would love to just bury Columbus, but I think that one just came down to the depth. So I think that's, they've got to improve their depth on the back line, which, they're probably going to be losing their left wing back and Alvaro Barreal. He's interested in going to Europe as well and has some opportunities. They need to, obviously the center back spot was something they needed to improve and then or add to. So they brought in Kip Keller, who struggled last year but does have MLS experience. So I think they're hoping they can bring him along. And then just that midfield, kind of developing some of their younger guys there is going to be key. But with losing Brandon, I think it was important that they got that deal done as soon as they could. They knew that he was going to be on the move, and they need to get his replacement. So I think that there was a little bit of not a rush, but they wanted to get that done so they can kind of move forward. They knew Brandon had wanted to move on, and so I think hopefully we're hearing some news about a new striker coming in at some point here soon.
I was going to say you're reading my notes. I was going to ask who is what's the gossip rumor innuendo with folks that might be the hashtag Brandon Vasquez replacement. Now Cincinnati's having to do hashtag replacement stuff. And who else is being looked at the back in addition to Kip Keller? Folks are wondering about Bupenza and if he is still around. What's the future in filling in the holes now at Cincinnati?
Yeah, I mean, I think they probably feel pretty good at center back for now. Just, they did have 2 draft picks last year at center back. They added another one in the draft this year. So they've got a pretty, it's a lot of development that needs to happen in the back end of that center back group. But the keys are going to be just filling in, Alvaro Barrial's replacement. I know Kai Wagner had been a discussion at one point. There's been, I think a lot of people were hoping Julian Gressel would come here, but it seems like he's headed to Miami. I haven't seen anything new on that in a while. So, and then Santiago Arias is still a free agent, right? Or not free agent, but he's still on the market. And so there's questions if they're going to bring him back as their right wing back. So that's still a question. But Bupenza's here. He's still on a contract through, I believe, 2025. So just finding the right partner for him up top is going to be key. I know Corey Bayard is a player that from Houston that FC Cincinnati had expressed some interest in. So we'll see if something happens there. But originally, going back to the Miles Robinson deal, I guess I was surprised because I had heard FC Cincinnati was actually looking at a possible young DP or DP striker to replace Brandon. And I'm just not sure how that works with Miles Robinson coming in and how much allocation money is going to be going to him. I don't know if it's possible for them still to buy down Obi Nwobodo's DP deal with his transfer fee. I think it's possible to buy that down with GAM this year. It's the 3rd year of his deal. So still a lot of questions as to how everything's going to fit budget-wise. And that's an area I'm not an expert in, I'll tell you that.
I'm going to put a bookmark in that. Go for it, Jared.
Yeah, and actually I wanted to ask you about, other areas like that, like any other areas where if someone is not looking at Cincinnati closely, any players you would recommend so that if people do tune in, kind of an under the radar player to keep an eye on going into 2024?
Other than his Yuya Kubo discussion.
Well, yeah, but that's not, if people who've listened to this show have heard me spout the gospel of Yuya Kubo. But aside from that, like other players from Cincinnati who might be kind of under the radar that they can keep an eye on going into 24 that you're excited about.
Well, normally my answer to that is Junior Moreno. I think he was the most underrated player for FC Cincinnati, but he is still unsigned. So we're not sure if he's coming back. Ian Murphy, I think he's still going to be a key for them. I mentioned him earlier, just being the, for now, he's still got that starting center back role, it seems. And just to continue his development, I know they wanted to get more out of him in the air, just kind of improve his skills in that regard. He's gotten a lot more comfortable on the ball, so that's been a key to his development. But yeah, there's a lot of just young guys that really need to take a step this year. We had, Malik Pinto is a guy that had been in their academy, went off to college and ended up signing with FC Cincinnati last year. Steven Jimenez signed as a 15-year-old. There's a lot of hope for him in the future, but still a lot of development to go with him. And he ended up with I think it was a foot fracture last summer. So that kind of set him back a little bit. But Brett Halsey is another one I would say. He's kind of a backup left wing back, can play on the right side. So I think that he started to show some things, and got to play against Messi in the Open Cup semifinal and gained some confidence from that. He did well in his minutes, and then all of a sudden just kind of actually I think it was the game at Atlanta. He kind of struggled a little bit, got a little maybe overconfident, and had a few mistakes, and kind of dropped off his playing time after that. So I think they kind of were leaning on their experience down the stretch a little bit more, but I think he's still a player to watch for sure.
Yeah, we got to see him both sides with FC Cincinnati 2 at Northern Kentucky against Atlanta United 2 in MLS Next Pro, and then we got to see him with the first team minutes as well. One more question for me when it comes to the financials for Miles. Miles was looking for Walker Zimmerman money, which would have put him at 1.8. He couldn't be offered anything, I think, up to 1.65, the 15% increase, bumping from 1.4. Any idea at all what the number is for Miles that he took because he wasn't going to get the 1.8 and he could only get 1.65? Any clue what the number is with Miles?
Yeah, that's what I'm still trying to figure out, because I imagine that he at least wanted the max of what FC Cincinnati could offer him. I was surprised by that, just because I was under the impression they were going for, more of a like $1.2 million center back, and, going heavier on what they were going to replace Brandon Vasquez with. But I would imagine that it had to have been at least, for him to agree to that deal. And I know, I think some of it was concerns playing on turf after he had torn his Achilles. I think that was probably a big reason maybe he wanted to move on from Atlanta. FC Cincinnati has a grass field, and that's enticing, I guess, to players that have played on turf. So my guess is that, though, it was pretty close to that 1.6.
All right, Jarrett, go for it.
Yeah, and I guess looking ahead into what the Cincinnati team could be, what should we expect from Lucho Acosta going into 24? Like, can he do more? Is it possible for him to do even more than he did this year, where he was just casually terrorizing the league?
I think if he just does what he did this past year, that's all that they're going to need. I mean, he carried the team at times. Early on, the attack just wasn't coming together. Brandon got off to a slow start. Brenner was kind of in and out, waiting on his transfer. And so it was a lot of Dom Badji, who, I thought did some really good things, and then ended up getting hurt just as he was kind of finding his rhythm in May. And then Sergio Santos brings a lot of speed to that front line, but also has some injury issues. But now I'm forgetting your question already. I kind of cut off on a tangent.
No, it's okay. It was just Lucho just terrorized everybody so casually.
Yeah, I mean, I think if he can, so I was sorry, I just went off on that little tangent. But yeah, he, while that attack was kind of struggling to come together, he started scoring more, and hopefully he doesn't have to do all that this year. I think Aaron Bupenza is capable of being a 20-goal scorer. They just need to find that connection. I think that was still an issue at the end of the season. They just weren't on the same page all the time. Aaron really likes to take defenders on himself, where Lucho really likes working with players that are gonna, do those, just creative passing and getting the ball back to him. He likes to have the ball. So, just getting him and Aaron Bupenza on the same page as far as how they're going to work together, I think is going to be a big key.
All right. So for folks that want to keep an eye on the quality work that you do day in and day out, how do they follow you? How do they keep an eye on you? How do they read what's going on in the Laurel Pfahler universe?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, I'm on Patreon. So that's kind of my platform that I use. Thank you for subscribing.
Oh, yeah.
For anyone that wanted to read, there are free trials that you can check out if there's an individual story you wanted to read. But so I'm on Patreon. You can just search Queen City Press on Patreon and it'll come up. But I'm on Twitter as well with Yeah, just my name, Laurel, Laurel, and I will say my last name's Pfahler. I should have corrected you at the beginning, but
hit me over the head and say that, John, you're an idiot. You mispronounced it.
It's okay. Everyone does. It's that H. So it's P as in Paul, F as in Frank, AHLER. So that just throws everyone off, that H in there. But yeah, so I'm on Twitter and I'm on Threads as well.
Okay, so Laurel Pfahler on Threads as well.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it might be Laurel _ Pfahler, but yeah.
Okay, so now that I've finally pronounced the last name correctly, Laurel, thanks for hanging out with us here on the morning show, and thanks for pulling back the curtain on everything going on up there at FC Cincinnati. Obviously, a lot of folks with Atlanta United ties interested with what's going on with Miles, with what's going on with Brandon. We'll be keeping an eye on stuff. Thanks for hanging out with us, and don't be a stranger.
Yeah, thanks for having me anytime.
All right, that's Laurel Pfahler, now that I've pronounced it correctly, twice at the end. Man, she was being nice about it. She was just being nice about it. I hate it when I do that. But no, it was good intel on Miles and Brandon and FC Cincinnati. So that is the official word from Laurel. Laurel's there like at practice every single day, and she does all this stuff. So she had all of the info and intel. And so literally when all this stuff was breaking yesterday, I reached out and I was like, can you come on the show where I can mispronounce your last name throughout the entire segment? And that way we got Laurel on. It was great to have her on at 9:30. Niko Moreno coming on at 10:30 to discuss things in his own way. He had the Nico Lodeiro transfer, and so we'll talk to him about Niko and the purple team and anything else on his mind as we turn the page into 2024. And we'll be getting into all of that. We got plenty of stuff to talk about. There were a lot of transfers yesterday, and whatever's on your mind collectively here on Twitch or on Twitter or what have you, let us know what's on your mind this morning. Next team that I want to talk about, just to kind of let everybody know what's going on, is what has Chris Armas done with Colorado? What is this Colorado Rapids team? Who are they? What are they doing for Rapids?
He is trying to build them. Now it sounds like they are going
to do it, which is strange.
We'll see. Sounds like they're going to get Jordy Mihailovic.
Yeah.
They've been moving people in and out left and right. And this is the thing I asked for when he got the job was, if you're going to give him the job, you have to know what you're getting into. Because we talked about with Dwayne back in the day. We were talking about Toronto. Like, I don't even know if Toronto knew what they were getting into.
Mm-hmm.
But does but does Colorado know what they're getting into, and are they going to be giving him what he needs in terms of talent, in terms of guys who fit how he wants to play? Because that was the thing it felt like Toronto didn't do with Armas. You handed him a square peg and a hole shaped like an S. So and Zach Steffen as well. And Steffen, I think Steffen could work there, if for no other reason. Zach Steffen probably won't have to play with his feet very much. If you're just asking him hey, if you get the ball, I want you to yeet that thing into the mountain air so high that it creates another thunderstorm.
Correct.
But if you're not asking him to do that, and you're just asking him hey man, if you're not asking him to play with the ball at his feet, and just asking him, hey, I need you to stop shots and I need you to get the ball far away, then I think he'll be okay.
Mm-hmm. When you bring in apparently, allegedly, possibly, probably Zach Steffen, and the price point for Steffen, from what we understand, isn't all that bad. I mean, it's like a Hugo Lloris price point here, which is another thing to talk about.
Yeah, because Zach Steffen never took the step forward that everyone thought he was going to take when he went to City.
Yeah.
Because he can't play with his feet consistently.
No, and so that's why you end up at Middlesbrough. And, we haven't even had the chance to talk about Hugo Lloris a whole lot, you and I, ever since that went down with LAFC. But Lloris comes in to take over. Apparently, Max Crepeau was going to be asking for a substantial raise. And John Thorrington was like, nope. And so you bring in Hugo Lloris instead. And you've got Hugo Lloris now in Los Angeles. You're on the verge of Zach Steffen in Colorado after they've waived Danny Wilson and Sam Nicholson. You're on the verge of bringing in Zach Steffen and Georgi Mihailovic. So that seems to be a decent swap when you're looking at those individuals. But yeah, and that's the key for me with Steffen. Make sure that he doesn't have to play with his feet. Just do what you got to do to outlet the ball and get things rolling. But yeah, they're letting Chris Armas work so far, which is something that we're not used to seeing in Colorado. Who are you people?
Yeah, then we'll see if it continues. I think the trick is you give him this opportunity, but the trick is going to be, will you keep doing it?
Yeah.
Will you continue to let him cook? Like, if it doesn't work in the first 5 months, are you going to let him continue with the project? And how long do you give him?
Mm-hmm.
Or do you, oh God, this isn't working, pull the plug, we can't spend this kind of money.
Yeah.
That's going to be the thing, is how long do you give it to work? Because you have to give it some time. Now, how long that is, I can't tell you. That's something only they can decide.
Mm-hmm. Niko is already fired up and posting. He said he wants to talk about Niko to the purple team and Pedro de la Vega to Seattle. So those are the first two topics that Niko wants to talk about coming up at the bottom of the hour. But with that going on in Colorado, New England has signed both Emmanuel Boateng and Jonathan Mensah, signing Boateng to come in through the 24 season, option for 25. Option declined at season's end after 2 and 3 in 27 appearances last season. Member of the Revs Supporter Shield winning side. He won the Pie Plate with them back in 21. Previous stints in the league with the Galaxy, DC United, and Crew. And so now you have Boateng, Shankalai, the trade for Nick Lima, and now signing Jonathan Mensah this morning. So Caleb Porter and Kurt Analfo apparently are sorting through the baloney, Jarrett. And that's what you've got so far out of New England with Caleb Porter going on. Who are these people?
And that feels like a good move. Like, Mensah is that guy who is going to be your veteran center back who can bring some stability. That's fine. That's what you want. So not mad at that.
Nope. Hugo Lloris to LAFC. So like I said, since we haven't had the chance really to dive into Hugo Lloris.
So I can talk for like 1 minute and then I have to go.
Okay. So then all right, well then pick a topic for a minute. And then
Hugo Lloris. Like, Hugo Lloris, are we going to have the same conversations we have about Brad Guzan with Hugo? Because they're not necessarily us, but like our LAFC fans are going to have that conversation the first time he doesn't get to a ball, because Hugo's 38, man.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, he is a 38-year-old goalkeeper, and yeah, he could probably get the job done, and it's pretty good salary-wise. But man, anytime you get like an older goalkeeper, I feel like it just kind of it's sitting there waiting to be discussed.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see.
Mm-hmm.
Came out of nowhere, but yeah, Hugo Lloris ain't the same guy that was dragging France kicking and screaming to the 2010 World Cup.
Yeah,
where they then staged a coup against their coach.
Yes.
One of the great moments of world soccer history.
Yeah. So Jimmy Chara from Portland to Junior FC. That happened yesterday as well. And we'll go through all of the other transactions that have happened as we go. So, Jarrett, you back with us tomorrow? Unless, of course, he just gave us an Irish goodbye and he was out the door, and that's what he did. Niall's got some concerns about Hugo Lloris. So you're not the only one. Jarrett is going to try to be back with us at 10:30. So that's where we are this morning. So, Niall, you're not the only one who's got concerns about Hugo Lloris. What's the backline going to look like to try to protect Hugo Lloris? That's another question. Laurel Pfahler. Goodness gracious, John. That's annoying. Tom, Thank you for dropping by this morning. And I know we had the big conversation about turf and grass with you guys this morning. I also think that Miles is in a situation where he's going to be able to stay at home. He's not going to have to be engaged in the play as much. He can stay at home. He can kind of be the deep safety for FC Cincinnati to help out Miazga. So that's another thing to kind of keep an eye on, possibly with what we're seeing from Pat Noonan. But like we talked about with Dylan Butler yesterday, I still think that Miles is part of that insurance policy when Miazga goes sideways between the years. You're going to need experience back there one way or another. You got two experienced guys, great. When Matt Miazga, and we know it's going to happen, at the very least, he's going to get a yellow card accumulation and he'll be out. You're going to need that experience at the back with Miles. So keep an eye on how all of that develops. And thanks to Laurel for coming on this morning, especially yesterday with all the back and forth and all the news that she was trying to break. Queen City Press, Patreon, and follow Laurel on Threads, and on the 280 character app. Wow. Okay. So first hour out the door. One of the things that I wanted to explain. I hit a button. I know that shocks you. Here's what happened. All right. So I have this set up. Nothing like that to start hour number 2. I have the setup here in the office where I have like 9 gazillion computers. And you start hearing noises from one of the computers and you're wondering what in the wide world of sports is going on. It's like, what is happening here with all of these computers? So sure enough, you're hitting all of these things and you're going, where's that noise coming from? And you're trying to itemize what's going on and all that kind of stuff. Here's my setup. It should have had you laughing because I turn to my left and I've got I've got a computer here. I have a computer to my left, and that's like the emergency, that's the emergency broadcast system computer. Emilio, I lose contact with myself pretty much consistently. So I've got the emergency broadcast system computer here in case everything else fails. And I use it also to help out as like a stats computer when I'm broadcasting stuff, when we do the twos broadcasts, that kind of a thing. So the third computer is here. Second computer is here, off to my left at about 10 o'clock, for those of you that are just listening and not watching. So I've got a second computer at about 10 o'clock. That's the one where I do most of my conversations off of social media and stuff. And then the one here in front is the big one where I have all my tabs open and I'm taking up all the memory and I get to watch you guys because I have the camera mounted here in front of me. But when I start hearing noise from the third computer, because of how I have positioned things, you start hearing weird noises and you're like, man, I think I better change it. And so I turned and that was the EBS, the third computer. No. Not quite like that. Kelsey says, I thought you were going to tell us Cincinnati bought the show. I had to start a new stream. No. Not that bad. But no, it was literally me freaking out because I heard stuff going on with the third computer. And I look and I see like passwords and all this kind of stuff, and it's making a whole lot of noise. And so that was why I turned to it. And then in turning to it, I hit the mouse. And there is something that happens when I hit the mouse and it like resets everything. It's something that I've got because I got a new wireless mouse set up for Christmas. And so you hit a button on the mouse and it resets what you're watching. It takes you back to a home page. So that was what happened with me. I hit a button on the mouse that had nothing to do with what was going on the computer, thinking that I was rescuing the third computer from all the noises. And then that's what happens when I bump myself out of the studio. Nothing like kicking yourself out of a studio. So that was where we are. The other transactions, now that we got that out of the way, that's your opening kickoff. There's opening kickoff to start hour number 2. To start hour number 2, John's an idiot. Nothing new. There's your QR code for those of you who are watching on Twitch, on the YouTube channel, or on the 280 character app. Right there. And thanks to everybody who has kicked off their day with our friends at Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com. They, in turn, take 10%. When you use the code soccer down here 15, you get 15% off of your purchase. They, in turn, take 10% reinvested into the youth game, youth initiatives. Very, very cool stuff from our friends at Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com. Okay. All right. So opening kickoff. Also, let me re-promote this. Once again, this is the scarf that we are using here to help out our friends at the Marshall Islands. The Marshall Islands Soccer Federation should be available within the next 2 weeks. It's a summer scarf, and when we know what the price point is, we'll let you know. But the money is going to help out our friends at the Marshall Islands, and they are trying to come and have some friendlies here in October to try and raise support and awareness of the Marshall Islands Soccer National Team program. That's the summer scarf. There you go. That's the summer scarf from our friends at the Marshall Islands. We're discussing price points and shipping and all that kind of stuff and availability, but it should be in-house in the next 2 weeks. Should be in-house in the next 2 weeks. So that's the scarf that we are using to help out our friends at the Marshall Islands and the Marshall Islands Soccer Federation. So as a public service announcement, you like the picture that I took with my phone because you see the tripod, the tripod for the camera up in the upper right-hand corner of the screen. That was what I had to do to turn it into a JPEG because it was a PDF file. So that's the scarf. We're waiting on the price point, but it'll help out our friends from the Marshall Islands as they're trying to, once again, as we've had the story about them being the last country on the planet without a national soccer team. So we are helping as a part of 2024. They want to do some stuff with the Marshallese that are here in the United States. And they want to do it during, I want to say October. They want to have a couple of friendlies, and it would be in Arkansas. But what we want to do is we want to help them get this project off the ground and come over here to the United States in 2024. So that's the scarf. When we know what the price point is, we'll let you know. But just wanted to sit there and say it's coming. The scarf is coming. And Michael Valverde with the public service announcement about Kickoff Coffee. Do yourself a favor. Get some. Good stuff. He had a cup this morning. Michael has like 9 different brands of Kickoff Coffee that he decides that he wants to that he wants to take cups from on a very on a consistent basis. He'll go from one to the other to the other to the other. But yeah, so Niko Moreno joining us bottom of the hour for the final half hour of the show. It'll be his first time here in 2024, and we'll talk about Niko. We'll talk about Niko Lodeiro going to the Purple Team, all the activity that they're looking to spend money up in Seattle, all that kind of stuff. The other transfers that have been on the board, Ivan Angulo from Palmeiras to Orlando City. And that is long-term Colombian winger through 25 with an option for 26. 5 goals, 11 assists at Palmeiras, 43 appearances. For Orlando City was a key part of the 2022 Open Cup winning side. So he was on loan from Palmeiras, and they've locked him up. Quote from Luis Muzzi, and Orlando's brought back Wilder Cartagena, parted ways with Mauricio Pereira. He went to Nacional, transferred Antonio Carlos to Fluminense, and have reportedly signed Niko Lodeiro. So we'll get into the Niko Lodeiro signing once again. Morning, Ram. Good to have you here. Diego Chiqui Palacios is signed with Corinthians from LAFC and joined them after leaving LAFC as a free agent. Starting left back for the last 4 seasons, joining from Aucas. 24, he had 1 goal, 12 assists, 102 regular season games. 2022 All-Star helped him get the MLS and Supporters Shield double that year. As he exits, that means now it's Hollingshead and Palencia as your fullbacks. Chiellini retired. And so now they've lost Chiellini and they've lost Chiqui Palacios. We remember the discussion we were having with Hugo Lloris now in net. You don't have Palacios. You don't have Chiellini. Of course, Chiellini's, I think, 39 years old. But once again, at the back, you have Hollingshead and Palencia and holes that you have to fill. So that's what you're staring at. We mentioned Yimi Chara going to Junior, and they'll now have 2 open DP slots. Yimi Chara goes to Colombian top flight side Junior. They declined the option on Yaroslav Nizhgoda. Evander is the only DP that remains right now in Portland. Ned Grabovoy had a 2-sentence thank you. They posted the video. It's official. Chara departs, 15 goals, 29 assists, 102 regular season games. He had initially joined his older brother Diego before the 2020 campaign. Yimi had initially played for Junior in 17-18, 16 caps for Colombia's national team. So as Chara goes, Evander, Felipe Mora, Anthony, Santi Moreno is what the attack is looking like for Coach Neville as they're getting ready for the 24 season for Phil Neville there in Portland. So that's what you're looking at right now. Obviously, there's a lot of gossip, rumor, and innuendo as to who's going what where. And to recap what we had with Gregerson, it looks like, according to our friends at L'Equipe, that it is going to be $2 million on the transfer. Bordeaux keeps 10% of the pass, and it looks like it's going to be a 4-year deal for Gregerson and Atlanta United. So like I said, we're still waiting on the officialness of that. And let's see if there is any kind of and he is actually on the Twitters at Steenrud, and he hasn't posted anything since 2013. So I'm guessing that that's not something that he really looks at a whole lot. So if we spell Gregerson correctly, the latest out of it, let's see if anything this morning. Looks like the Emery Tyne piece where we got the information yesterday is where we are. So the agreement is in place according to various sources. Agreement in place on the fee. Players discussing personal terms now. Time to travel for medical and the contract signing. But once again, we mentioned that the folks are kind of mad in France about Gregerson leaving. Reason being is that Bordeaux is in a relegation battle. 3 points clear of relegation in Ligue 2 right now. And when Fabrizio Romano is talking about this, everybody was giving Fabrizio Romano some stick yesterday when he was mentioning Stian Gregerson as a transfer. And he's like, no, we only want to hear about Chelsea. But when Stian Gregerson as a transfer is being mentioned by Fabrizio Romano, that is wild. So, Gregerson, keep an eye on that. Bartosz Szliz, we talked about him in Legia Warsaw. It was in that same $2 million range. So, Szliz would be to help out your midfield. Gregerson comes in to help out at center back. Obviously, you lose out on Jonathan Mensah. But you've got Derek Williams, who was drafted in re-entry. And then, obviously, the departures of Sosa. You have the departure of Miles, obviously. You have Hosechu departing. So, and Ibarra looks like he's heading to Rosario Central. We talked about that yesterday as well. So you have inbounds and outbounds that are a part of all of this. So keep an eye on Szliz, keep an eye on Gregerson, and keep an eye on if anything else is going on in the minds of the front office for Atlanta United. And they're very economical deals. Nothing that's 8 figures that's going to break the bank, because like you're seeing with LAFC being rumored to folks and LAG being rumored to folks that are $10 million transfer fees. Atlanta's working the two here, bringing folks in, signing them to longer term deals. So keep an eye on all of that stuff when it comes to all of the players and all the folks that are a part of the discussion here early in the window. I know that the thing is, I think that Tom jinxed us. I legitimately think that Tom jinxed us. Tom said, "There's nothing going on. No mentions of anything in the transfer window." And so then, of course, the next day, all hell breaks loose. It's Miles, it's Brandon Vasquez, it's Gregerson, it's Schlees, all this kind of stuff. All this happens. Ibarra outbound, has set you on Instagram. Other pieces of news this morning. Tejon Buchanan is in Italy, undergoing his medical ahead of his $7.7 million move from Club Bruges to Inter. The Revs, by the way, get 10% of the pass above $7 million as a part of the deal. 10% profit above the $7 million. So it's a decent piece of business. Brian Chianiti posted that information first. So 7.6 with add-ons. AC Horsens in the Danish league finalizing a deal to sign Simon Becher from the Whitecaps. Fee for $400,000. Whitecaps get a percentage. 6 goals, 2 assists last year in all comps. But yeah, the idea of the club record deal for Georgi Mihailovic in Colorado. Fee north of $3 million. And they want to finish the deal as soon as possible. Zach Steffen, permanent deal. Agreements in place. Once again, this is from Fabrizio Romano, so it's a here we go. 3-year deal for Zach Steffen. An option for one more after that. City approved the move. And the documents are being prepared. Out of USL Championship, and I know that Kaylor Hodges and Morrissey and his group, they were probably going to be talking about this. Former USMNT youth player Manny Perez headed from Lou City to Denmark, and he's headed to Horsens. Louisville gets the fee, and the deal was announced this morning. So that's what you're looking at with all of those particular moves. $3 million. Who are these Colorado Rapids? And what have they done with the Colorado Rapids? Ben says a free agent center back's reuniting with Caleb Porter. They were together in Columbus when they won the 2020 Cup. This was another one that we haven't had the chance to really talk about yet. Portland gets Kamal Miller from Inter Miami. Miami's going to get $625,000 in GAM and an international slot. They'll need it. Because remember, they're still chasing after Marcus Rojo. Miami could get another $150,000 in add-ons as well. So that's a big move for Portland. Who's going to defend? Who is going to defend in Miami for Messi and friends? What's that defense going to look like? I'm guessing it's going to be something along the lines of like a 2-8-1 or a 2-7-1. It's going to be like a 2-7-1 up there. No one's going to be there to defend. No one is going to be there to defend. 0 people. 0 defenders. Period. Literally, it's going to be take the over. We talked about taking the over with Messi and friends the entire season, so take the over with Messi and friends the entire season. I'm not kidding. Nile, apparently the topic of Schlees' transfer may accelerate after he returns from vacation as the player's still abroad. So contributor Nile finding this out this morning is nothing like having all of these different bookmarks, you know? All these different bookmarks are now in place where we're chasing after Bartosz Schlees. Who figured that we would have bookmarks in our daily conversations about Stian Gregerson and Bartosz Schlees in our search engines? From our friends at Mekshiki in Poland, who initially broke the news, our buddy Tomasz Lodarczyk and his 166,000 followers on the 280 character app. Yeah, Tomas Lodarczyk was the one who initially introduced us all to the Bartosz Szliz chase. So the update, once again, using our friend Google Translate, from our buddy Lodarczyk, player still abroad, and it is a tough decision for Legia Warsaw. No real surprise. Piotr Kuzminski, who is a reporter at UEFA.com and has ties to Mekshiki and their roundtables, says that it is a tough decision for them. And once again, this is a Google Translate, so this is how it is from Kuzminski. They are slaves to the length of their contract, which ends at the end of the year. So Meshiki's the program and tied to Polish sports and Polish football. Tough decision because Szliz apparently is in control. It's like my deal's up at the end of the year. So if Atlanta United's coming to the table with what we were looking at as another $2 million deal, bringing in Bartosz Szliz from Legia Warsaw, and it would be another deal from what we were looking at of a couple of years, $2 million in. Let's see if I can spell Bartosz Szliz. We can look at our friends from Transfermarkt. Defensive midfielder. He's 24. And his value has gone through the roof. Value currently, €6 million, according to our friends at Transfermarkt. And he's under contract through the end of this calendar year. He will have spent 4.5 years, or almost 5 years, at Legia Warsaw by the time his contract expires. But yeah, his contract expires at the end of the calendar year. Now that we're in 24, we can say this. The end of the 24 calendar year. So Szliz can sign a deal and sit there and go, no, I don't want anything to do with it anymore. I want out. So you look at the profile for Szliz all seasons. Main position, defensive midfield. Of the 201 matches he has played in his career, 80% of them have been defensive midfield. He's done some central midfield, and when he's been really needed to be pressed into service, he's been left mid or attacking mid. But 80% of his career has been as a defensive midfielder. And I know that there are a lot of you this morning that are talking about needing more another experienced individual in defensive mid. Szliz would fit that bill to help continue to develop Jay Fortune, even though what we've seen from Jay Fortune, I know that we're very high on him. But, you bring in Bartosz Szliz from Legia Warsaw, and you see what happens. So far this year, in 5 separate competitions, 24, 30, 33 matches in 23, 24 so far, 1 goal, 3 assists, not afraid to mix it up. He's got 10 yellows, 18 matches in league play this year, but he's already played 33 matches in the 23-24 season. Last season, he played 38 matches, had over 3,200 minutes. 21-22 season, he's been in Europa League qualifying, Champions League qualifying, Super Cup, league play. So in the 21-22 year, it was 43, 44, 50 matches for Szliz in league play, Polish Cup, Super Cup, Champions League qualifying, Europa League qualifying. So he's been on a lot of other competitions, knows what it means to compete in Europe. And it is Lecce and Legia Warsaw and Atlanta United. So that's what you're looking at with Bartosz Szlies. But that was just his value. Value, according to our friends at Transfermarkt, had Szlies, his value at €6 million. The transfer looked like it was in the neighborhood of 2 from initial reports. And it's down to apparently Lecce and Atlanta United. What does Szlies want to do next when his contract expires? Rich Ransom dropping in news this morning. Revisions to competition in the NWSL. Okay, all right. So before Niko comes on, I know that this was something that Tom brought to the table a little bit ago about where you have USL Super League and the NWSL. They're both with the women's sport, and they are they're 2 separate leagues, 2 separate tracks, what have you. What happens now with both of these leagues going on? I don't view it as a competition. The NWSL, they've got a new TV deal. They're off in their own lane. They're expanding, and they're doing their thing. Frankly, they should just focus on themselves. NWSL, focus on yourself. Let the USL Super League grow. Let the Super League grow on its own, in its markets, in its place. NWSL can grow in its place, do its thing. But now, apparently, according to our friends at Front Row, NWSL announced revisions to the competition guidelines, increased salary cap, hallelujah, new transfer fee policy, among other updates. $2,750,000 salary cap to be used against a 22 to 26 player roster for the campaign. And they're phasing out allocation money. Teams will no longer be able to purchase allocation money and must spend or withdraw any outstanding monies that have been funded and rolled over by Christmas Eve 2026. So they've got 3 years to ditch all of their AM. NWSL established a net transfer fee threshold of $500,000, encompassing both intra-league trades and inter-league transfers, whereby fees paid for incoming players will be offset by the value of fees received for outgoing. Net fees paid by a team in excess of $500,000 get a 25% surcharge toward the team's salary cap. Teams are no longer required to use AM to pay for transfer and trade fees. They've implemented a related party transaction policy establishing parameters for NWSL teams with investors who maintain a majority stake in a or position of influence with a non-NWSL team and seek to loan or transfer players between the 2 clubs. And that probably is something that Michelle Kang is going to have to keep an eye on, and all the other teams that have cross-pollination. League has released a revised U18 entry mechanism that will now allow teams a maximum of 4 U18s between senior roster and entry list, shared at a later date, according to the league. But no more AM. AM is being phased out in the NWSL. Got to start somewhere. Phased out in the NWSL. And can we talk about what's going on at Gotham? Gotham is just picking up everybody. I mean, seriously. Tierna Davidson signs with Gotham. Crystal Dunn and Tierna Davidson. And that's just the last 2 transactions. Tierna Davidson, free agent, multi-year deal through 26. Davidson joins Gotham after playing for Red Stars the last 5 years. Free agent class that also includes Rose Lavelle, Emily Sonnet, Emily Fox, Becky Sauerbrunn, Mallory Swanson. Meg Linehan 2 days ago said that the Gotham deals for Lavelle and Sonnet are inching closer to completion. Gotham's just grabbing everybody. It's just like, why the hell not? Gotham is there. They brought in Tierna Davidson. Sure, go for it. You get on CBS This Morning with Crystal Dunn. I mean, why not? If Gotham wants to line up this all-star squad, Allie Krieger, Kelly O'Hara, Midge Purse, Tierna Davidson, Crystal Dunn, go for it. You can afford it, go for it. What you're doing in this case, if you are Gotham, you're just lining them up. What I want, and you know that the new owners of the newer franchises, KFC, they're the best team in the metro area. You're probably not wrong. Best team in the metro area is Gotham. Absolutely. Yeah, Gotham is just like, yeah, you, and you. Bring them in. What I want in this case, I want them, look, Gotham, I want it to be balanced. And if you're going to be like this and you want to go into, Dunn and Friends or Davidson and Friends or Krieger and Friends or whatever, just line them up. But what it also does is it challenges the other owners in the NWSL. If Gotham is this serious about it, you know that Michelle Kang is going to want to invest. You know that when Bay is up and running, they're going to want to chase after folks. But invest in your own way. Just because you see what Gotham is doing and bringing in all this all this firepower, don't overextend yourself. Because we all want the NWSL to grow. We all want the U.S. Super League to grow. Focus on your own separate lanes of traffic. But for the NWSL, if you're looking at what Gotham is doing, don't try to match Gotham if you can't match Gotham. Do things your own way. There's different ways to build. Gotham wants to go shiny and high-powered. Cassie says timelines. Gotham and Cosmos fused to become the NYC team. Rich, for a franchise that spent close to 20 years on not spending more than $1 on anything, win a championship, and all of a sudden they think they're Chelsea. Well, we'll see what happens. Crystal Dunn, Crystal Dunn in Times Square. And apparently, season ticket emails come out. Ticket pre-sale mentions limited season tickets remain. Never get front office reports about renewal percentages. And apparently the club has an inflated price for the Miami match. Tom says, especially since Messi likely ain't playing again anyway. Don't know. Like I said, it could be, it is, you look at the schedule, you look at the midweek, and you're going, especially late in the year. So we'll see. But a lesson to the rest of the NWSL. Do you. Gotham is doing this. Gotham is going shiny object. It's Crystal and Friends, Krieger and Friends, however you want to phrase it. U.S. Women's National Team and everybody else. But a lesson to the rest of the NWSL. You do you. You do you. Don't freak out about what Gotham's doing. Don't get bogged down in what Gotham is doing. If your way is different, if you want to build through younger talent and establish, that way, do that. Don't stare at Gotham and sit there and go, oh, we've got to do the same thing, especially if you can't afford it. You're not doing the league any good. So keep an eye on all of that. What to watch today and where to watch it. There's a decent amount of stuff. Everything is starting to get warmed back up when it comes to league play. Today, third round of the FA Cup kicks off. ESPN Deportes again has the triple header in La Liga, 11, 1, 15, and 3. Osasuna, Almeria, Sevilla, Athletic Club, Las Palmas, and Barca at 3:30. ESPN Plus has Crystal Palace and Everton in the FA Cup. That's at 3. Coppa Italia's round of 16 is also at 3 on Paramount Plus, Juve and Salernitana. So, once again, limited schedule, but everybody's getting revved back up. More of it tomorrow, then again, more on the weekend. We mentioned what was going on in the NWSL. The Portland Thorns got sold finally, $63 million. Raj Batal, RAJ Sports, bought it from Peregrine, which is the Paulson family. Thorns are going to share Providence Park as a home venue with the Timbers, continue to train at the stadium until the new training facility is completed. Timbers' business staff will work with the Thorns as new business operations are built up. Lisa Batal Mirage will serve as controlling owner and NWSL governor. Alex Batal serves as NWSL alternate governor. Batal's family holds interest in the Kings, the River Cats, the Stockton Kings G League. Development projects in Sacramento include the Golden One Center, a hotel, Downtown Commons retail. And we all know about Merritt Paulson. We talked a lot about Merritt Paulson because of what happened in the Yates report. But mercifully, now the Portland Thorns, official, have been sold $63 million. Good on the Portland Thorns. Good on the Portland Thorns. Other gossip, rumor, and innuendo. We'll get into that before Niko joins us for the first time here in 2024. If I don't knock us off the air, if I don't knock myself off the air again. Manchester United interested in making Michael Olise from Crystal Palace one of the first signings for Sir Jim Ratcliffe. Mo Salah moving closer to a new contract extension at Liverpool. Saudi Arabia's PIF has renewed interest in Kevin De Bruyne. Dortmund hoping to sign Ian Matson from Chelsea. They want Jadon Sancho to join them on loan after saying a week or two ago that they didn't want him. Chelsea's going to let Thiago Silva leave the club when his contract runs out at the season. At the end of the year, Fluminense ready to offer him a return. Bayern Munich set to renew their interest in Joao Palhinha and Trevor Chalobah from Chelsea in January. Arsenal prioritizing a move for left back because but Mikel Arteta probably is going to have to settle for a loan deal rather than a transfer. Crystal Palace interested in signing Eddie Nketiah. Arsenal will not sell unless they can find a replacement. Girona manager Michel Sanchez has emerged as a potential replacement for Eddie Howe already. Wow, Marca. Ligue 1's Lyon want to sign Said Benrahma from West Ham, with Wolves and Fulham also ready. Timo Werner has emerged as a serious transfer target for Manchester United. RB Leipzig set to allow a loan deal. Everton seeking to offload Andres Gomes because of the high wages. Monaco in discussions with West Ham over a loan with an option to buy for Thilo Kehrer. Sheffield United close to signing Villarreal's Ben Brereton Diaz. Do it. You need offense. Wolves are in advanced talks to sign 18-year-old Gabonese midfielder Noha Lamina, brother of Mario, on loan from PSG. And we mentioned Zach Steffen from Manchester City to our friends in Colorado. For the first time, 2024. For the first time in 2024, it is time to bring the man in. It is Niko. How you doing, brother?
Hey, what is going on, John? SDH family, happy 2024. We are back, baby. This is actually the first day I'm doing anything content related of the year. I was taking last couple of days to just hang out with the family, get the kids situated, and I'm back, baby. You know, kind of missed on a couple of breaking news there by a couple of hours and things, but you know what? Sometimes you lose some, sometimes you win some.
Well, and I know that one of the ones that we wanted to talk about out of the blocks was Niko Ladero heading to the purple team. And when I know that you had the intel on that one out of the blocks, but Niko and Orlando, it's an interesting play here. I don't know what they're going to do with him, but it's an interesting play nonetheless.
Yeah, there was actually a big market for him right until the end. There were really two options that he was heavily considering. Neither of those were Inter Miami. That's kind of the news that I kind of kept seeing from people that I just think wanted it to happen, and they just kind of put dots together because of Luis Suarez and even Chris Henderson being part of that club. But beyond interest, he never went down to being close to him moving there. But there was a lot of interest from several teams: San Jose, Houston, obviously Orlando. But the big factor here, and what actually was the deciding factor for Niko, was a conversation with Oscar Pareja. Apparently, I'm told that Oscar Pareja had a big desire to have Nicolas Odero in his squad. Really like the leadership aspect, the presence, the soccer profile for what he's envisioning next year. And why not? This is an Orlando team that has a lot of weapons. There are still some that we don't know if they'll be back or not, but at the end of the day, there's a lot of talent, and he is a player that can come in, be a creative player. He can ultimately amplify all the talent within that team. Has two really good center defensive midfielders behind him, so it just gives him the freedom to just roam up top. Don't have to do a lot of sacrificing, although he probably will because he's Nicolas Guerrero and he covers a bunch of ground. But I think for him to be able to just play up top, have that safety net behind him, I think it's going to be real good. But ultimately, like I said, Oscar Pareja talking to Nicolas Guerrero, telling him how much he wanted him there was a deciding factor. Obviously, he has Facundo Torres there, someone who he's had a long relationship with, who he knows as well. So I think it's going to be a good fit. I'm not surprised that there was so much interest from so many teams for Nicolas Odero, whether it was officially or unofficially simple calls to just inquire about his situation. I'm glad that he went to Orlando. I think it's a team that could do a lot of good things next year, and I'm excited to watch him there.
So then what does now Seattle do when it comes to trying to find, I'm not going to say, do the hashtag Ladero replacement, but what does now Seattle do to try and fill those spaces so you still have as much continuity under Brian Schmetzer as possible coming into 24? What's on the radar?
Well, you definitely don't get a player-for-player replacement. I don't think that's the vision of the team. I think it'd be silly to try to find a player that could do the things that Niko did. The caliber of talent that you were blessed with when you got Nicolas Odero was obviously done with some analytics and things. And I think Seattle has done a very good job at looking beyond the field to really get players that are going to provide you with everything that Niko did. But the plan on the field at this moment in time is working with what you have, the core group that is still there, from Yemer Gomez Andrade, from Albert Rusnak and Joe Paulo, all those guys, and then bring other players that are going to provide you with what you didn't have last season, which was some goals, some speed, some one-on-one players that are going to be dynamic and hard to cover. So Pedro de la Vega is the guy that is obviously in the works. As of last night, it was still not official. It was still not done. As I have been told, actually just right before I got on this call with you guys, there's still a medical exam that needs to happen. All the medical stuff has not been done at the moment. All of the contract stuff is being looked, reviewed. There was a little bit of a back and forth in terms of the percentage that Lanús wanted to keep for the player. Seattle obviously wanted the entirety of the rights of the player, so there was some back and forth there. But as of right now, it's still not official, still fall apart. I've been a part of a lot of these talks and giving people details behind the scenes, and that's why I've been very quiet in terms of what I've been hearing, because I do know that it's delicate, I would call it. I think it's delicate, and it could fall apart if things don't go a certain way. But once it does, and once it gets pushed through, there's still a medical component that's going to happen, and then eventually the player will come in. But he is that player that is supposed to bring something different to the team. I think Albert Rusnak is going to be your 10, and I think Pedro Del Vega is going to play out wide. That's just what I think will happen. I think you don't pick up Albert's option if you don't think he can provide you with the least, being that, I guess a safe player for that position, someone that's going to put the right passes, is going to have the right attitude, is going to understand the system, is going to contribute. Is he going to be absolute wrecking ball like maybe Lodero was when he first came on? No, but he's going to be a player that's going to do a lot of things right. And in my opinion, what the club wants to do is have a real high floor just to start off the season and see how other pieces can come in.
Colorado is another intriguing one. And the running gag that we've been having on the show the last day or so is, who are these Colorado Rapids and what have you done with the Colorado Rapids? Because they're investing, it looks like Zach Steffen with a 3 or a 3+1, and Georgi Mihailovic coming in. This investment, where is this investment coming from? We've never seen stuff like this from Colorado. We've seen like waivers and little tweak deals here, but now they want to drop the hammer and bring in a Zach Steffen, and they want to bring in a Georgi Mihailovic to help things out.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit of a few aspects to why this big change. What I've been hearing is that clearly this team can ambition to be a lot better than they have been. Chris Armas has a lot to do with that. Chris Armas coming in, he has certain expectations before taking on this team, and those expectations will be applied to this season. There is obviously a desire to change entirely because of where MLS is at this day and age. They see what's going on around the league. They see what's going on with the Western Conference. They don't want to stay behind. They feel like there's a good following there. So I think this team is doing what they should have been doing maybe 2 years ago, to be quite honest. And the Zach Steffen acquisition is a good one. It's a great one. If Berkey showed anything to MLS followers and MLS teams, is that having a great goalkeeper can change your entire franchise. I mean, having that guy back there that's going to just give you that safety net, that's going to be a leader, that's going to be your everyday guy is important. Berkey was fantastic. Now, Pedro Galesa, when he went into Orlando City, I praised that move over and over again. We've seen what the fruits of that has been. So when you get a guy like that and you spend a little bit of money, I think it's a big, big move. And when it comes to Jordy, man, this is a talented guy, right? I mean, sometimes you go to Europe, things don't pan out. You don't maybe blow up immediately. So you go back. And there was a lot of teams interested in him. Me and you love the way he played, if I'm not mistaken. He's a guy that could do a lot of things. His soccer IQ is high, tactically gifted, understands the game. I think he's extremely talented, and he could be a real important piece for what Colorado wants to do next season. So I think you're right. I think it's there was a BC when it comes to this team and what was happening before and what's going to happen now. And you hope that it kind of works out, because then what happens if you get all these players and you're still at the bottom of the Western Conference, then I'm not sure if anybody has answers after that.
Yeah, I mean, that's what you're looking at. It's you're looking at all of this and you're going, okay, new coach, you're letting him breathe a little bit. You're letting him bring in players, and they're big names. Biggest thing for Zach Steffen, though, as long as he's in a system where he doesn't have to work with his feet and he can just sit there and he can grab the ball, outlet, go, and he doesn't have to do anything at ground level to try to send the offense forward. I think that's going to be big. I'm interested to see what Chris Armas is going to do philosophically. I mean, because we're locked into the idea of what we saw at Red Bull. We know what we saw in Toronto, which was square peg, round hole, or square peg S-curve. I mean, it was not happening. And Chris Armas was a quick exit, and then he goes over and works out with Leeds. I'm just interested to see philosophically what Chris Armas is going to bring to the table. Is it going to be Red Bullsian with Georgi Mihailovic up top, or is it going to be something that breeds a little bit? This is going to be intriguing for me.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I think that's the biggest question mark, and what we'll all be looking at all the way from the preseason and early stages. What's the soccer module? What is the plan and the way you're gonna decide to implement the curriculum that I'm sure has grown from when he was in MLS before? I expect it to be very versatile, very open based, very quick and effective in terms of not a lot of passing. I think it's going to be very direct. There will be some high pressure moments, in my opinion. But at the end of the day, I think direct will be his play. That's just my opinion. But it'll be interesting with because the big conundrum when it comes to being a new coach is you got to come in and kind of see the players that you have right now. And obviously, you got the players that are on your list. These are the guys that I want to bring back. So, do you build a module with the team that you have, or do you just change everything that these players have done, understand, their instincts, and just put them to what you want them to do? So it's going to be very interesting. I think he's a very qualified coach. I was excited when he was announced as the new Colorado coach, and he makes a big difference. You see it on the signings, and I'm really looking forward to seeing the change on the field.
LAFC. Cheeky Palacios gone, and Cheeky Palacios, part of that back line. Chiellini at the age of 72 finally does retire. You're wondering about Carlos Vela. Is Carlos Vela coming back? And you bring in Hugo Lloris at 37. McCarthy, I mean, we went over before all of this happened at the end of the calendar year. We were looking at all of the players that were leaving. I think it was 14 players who had contracts that were ending at the end of the calendar year. And now LAFC brings in Hugo Lloris in net because Max Crepeau apparently wanted to have a large salary bump from what he was currently making. And you've got questions up top. Who's going to be there with Denny Bouanga? What's Carlos Vela doing? Is he going to go to Real Sociedad? LAFC, I know we're all sitting there looking at Steve Cherundolo going, okay, it's LAFC. There's an anticipation and an expectation that they're going to be at the top of the West, but they've got a lot of questions, man.
They got a lot of questions, and if we look at big parts of the season last year, it wasn't all, rainbows and happiness, and it was a breeze. They struggled, and yes, this team, at the end of the day, if there's something that was a big positive, was that they were able to beat you in different ways, and they were able to at least not have the need to control the ball at all times. They would play pragmatic. They would play direct. But there are question marks. I'm with you in terms of Chiqui Palacios was big for this team. I mean, the two-way players at that position are not easy to find. I think that the player, the answer to Chicho Arango is still not there. Yes, Denis Bouanga was fantastic, and he had a great season. But he's still a white player. You don't have a 9. You don't have a player that can really do that. I expect Carlos Vela to be back, but under a very limited role. And if not limited, just what he did last season, right? He's not going to be your everyday guy. You're going to look into what the opposition is. Can I play with kind of that false 9 there and do things? So I expect them to, make a change there, because I don't see 15, 16, 17 goal scorer that I feel like this team needs at times. And then there's no questions about Denis Bouanga. Will he stay? Will he go? And Lloris, it was interesting because he's not a player of need, right? It's not something that you were looking for. Crepeau was fantastic. You had depth there at that position. But I think if LAFC learned something from getting Chiellini, which is a move that I criticize over and over and over again, although maybe it wasn't a home run right off the bat. At the end of the day, he ended up being important on the field. I think that he was a huge ambassador for LAFC and MLS in general, globalizing the brand. I think Lloris does a lot of that. We're not going to talk about the books and the numbers and the salary, because there's literally no point at all for the amount of money that they're obviously reporting that he's coming in for. But let's talk about what he can provide. And it's a great goalkeeper with a bunch of experience, and that is going to be much like Chiellini, this ambassador, this guy that's going to say, look, you can come to MLS, you can come to LAFC, you could play, you could be in a competitive league, and you can live in LA, you could have the lights and all of the things that come in with being an LAFC player. So I like the move. I'm not going to knock LAFC for bringing that aspect into it, but I will judge them if come June or July, this team is struggling in other phases of the game, because they give themselves that little bit of a luxury.
Considering that they got to have folks who need to be in front of Lloris to help stop the shots.
Absolutely. 100%.
I'm looking at that back line. What are you going to do to the back line to help out Hollingshead and Palencia? What are you going to do there to help them out with a 37-year-old keeper behind them? And it also
because Aaron Long struggled last season, and he didn't look like the guy that they thought they were going to sign, if you ask me, right? And Murillo, he's been lights out for this team, but he can't do it alone. And there's the question mark of Ilya Sanchez, and how much is he going to be able to do to filter that so he doesn't put as much pressure on your back line? Because there were times last season where I thought that he looked gassed. He looked like he needed some help. And he didn't quite have it in terms of having another player that would do the defensive aspects of the game in that midfield. So, yes, I think that there's a lot of question marks in front of Lloris.
And also a word from Mundo Segunda this morning. It looks like Mario Gonzalez might be on a loan to Sporting Gijon for the season as well. And then, obviously cross town, you're looking at the Galaxy, and what are the Galaxy going to do in a year that is important for them? And it looks like, folks are sitting there going, all right, we're going to drop 8 figures on folks and bring in $10 million transfer fees and all this kind of stuff. So, I mean, you sell Boyd to get another international spot. And so you've got this international slot to help out Ricky Puig. What are you doing there? I mean, this is a big season for LA Galaxy as well. And LAG looks like they're going to try and drop some money. What a shock.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost a total rebuild in terms of those big faces, right? You got Ricky, and that's your new franchise player, so the new face of the franchise, if you will. But you got to go in and get a replacement for Javier Hernandez. Yep. You got to get a guy that's going to be that matador up top. LA Galaxy have always been known for having a big Mexican influence player there. So it's going to be interesting if they go that route. There aren't many groundbreaking Mexican players right now in the striker position, but maybe they'll go that route. But there is a lot to do with that team. Now, there were players that I think before injuries showed us that they could be useful, but I feel like Greg Vanney has no room for error. That seat is still boiling hot, and so he's going to need results right off the bat.
What about Portland? We saw the news about Jimmy Chara going back to Junior. Neville is making moves here. He's kind of tweaking here to try to bring things his way. What have you seen down the freeway with your Cascadia rivals?
Well, the Kamal Miller was a big one. I felt like that move was important.
Who's going to? Okay, so let me get back to that. Who's going to defend for Messi and friends now?
I have no idea. I really don't know how you. And this is the crazy thing about Inter Miami, is that sometimes I feel like there's two heads involved with what's going to happen to the team. And I think like one head went and got Kamal Miller because he's an international player with a lot of experience, one of the best center backs, if you will, top 10 if you want to do it that way or whatever, within MLS, and you got a lot of things going on. So he's going to be our guy. And then someone else said, hey, man, you know what? There's someone else that we could come in and bring, and he might have a little bit more flourish. And, so that's kind of what I see within Miami. I have no idea if there really is just two heads that are leading this project, but it's not very coherent now. I have no idea who's going to be your top defender there right now. I mean, is Gonzalez Perez going to come back?
He signed an extension with River, I think. I think he's locked in.
Well, so that's out of the way. So what's going to happen whenever you have Tata Martino and you have that type of money and freedom, because this is going to be the first year that they work without those sanctions, I'm guessing they'll want to go out there and make a big move. But it was kind of interesting. Right now, I could tell you, to your question, I don't see who's going to be that defensive back line that's going to hold or keep them from having to rescue a game 4-3, 3-4, 5-4. So it's going to be interesting what Chris Henderson and the rest of that club do in that regard.
I know I want to get back to Portland, but since we're riffing here on Messi and friends, I've got to ask. I mean, right now you're staring at Messi and friends with the addition of Luis Suarez. There's talk of Marcus Rojo. And literally, I think it's going to be like a 2-7-1 or maybe a 2-8 when it comes to defense and formation. I mean, this thing for me, take the over every single week.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, juice boxes, man, lock the over down every single chance you get. And what I think is going to happen, and we talked about it in between Christmas and New Year's, I think you're going to see Messi and friends come out with the Super Friends lineup out of the blocks in as many games as possible to get a big point total, and then knowing that you're going to be in multiple competitions and having to do other things when you're going to have to rest folks. I think they're going to try to get out to a fast start and be way ahead of everybody else in the East, where everybody's going to sit there and go, oh, they're going to run over everybody. It's Messi and friends. Look at that. And, they're going to have like a big point. They're going to have a big point total early because they've started everybody. And then they're going to try to hang on because of rest and schedule compression and multiple competitions. I think everybody's going to freak out if they get a big point total early, but that's because that's when you can have all of Messi and friends together as a unit, knowing that the schedule is going to be different later on down the line.
Yeah, that's probably what Tata is envisioning as well. But I'm still wondering what version of Luis Suarez you're going to get. I mean, I've been hit with a bunch of comments and posts of go look at him play in Brazil and look. I'm not saying that the guy is not talented. I'm not saying that the guy can't still do it. What I'm saying is that the wheels of that bus are stuck with some super glue and tape, and you're waiting for them to fall off at some point.
Don't tread on those tires, brother.
Yeah, there's no thread there. You put the quarter in, is the whole thing still up there? I mean, what I'm saying is that MLS is a lot more challenging than people realize. I've talked to a bunch of players away from the microphones, and they've admitted to me the travel, the difference of climate, the difference of fields, some of the work weeks that happen. It's a beat on the body. And I've seen players at the end of the year just, man, my whole body hurts. I'm aching here, there, that. And having Luis Suarez with all those issues, I'm just not sold. I'm not sold that he's going to come in here and be a 20-goal scorer like something. He's just going to come in and just do even more than Bouanga or do more than Cucho, who, to me, are in a better point in their career, obviously, than Luis Suarez. So kill me, beat me, and think that I'm this guy that's just hating on Luis Suarez, but I just don't see it. So where is this team going? I don't know. I've been really amazed, and I guess I shouldn't be, about how much influence Lionel Messi has on this roster and who's coming in, who's coming out. Because on paper, I don't know if I'm impressed with what's happening in Miami right now.
All right, so what's going on now that this is your first day back? What's going on with Soccer Bar and Pulso Sports now that we've turned the page to 2024?
Well, we're hoping to get started this Thursday at Soccer Bar. We're going to talk about some of these moves. We're going to talk about the future of Inter Miami. We're going to talk about Nicolas Herrero. Definitely, we're going to focus in on the Sounders and what's happening here. 50-year anniversary for this team. How far can they get? What's the plan here for the team in 2024. So that's kind of what we have going on both sides. I'm just hoping to kind of get back on the horse. Like I said, there was a lot happened in between last time I talked to you and today. But I had to take some vacation as well. I had to give my family some time. So now we'll see what's going on. To your question on Portland, I think is going to be interesting season. I'm not Phil Neville guy, to be honest. I don't know if I know that's come across to you and your fan base. So I'm still not sure how that franchise is going to do, but some good moves. There is a change there of some players that have been there for a long time. Some big shoes to fill for Phil because of everything that Gio did. In general, I know that he didn't win no titles, but he always made this a competitive team every single year. So he's going to have a lot of pressure, but he's going to be fun. I'm excited to be back, hoping to get on the horse and hopefully today have some updates on Pedro, have some updates on Nathan, the Airquicks player. The Sounders trying to finalize, or I'm told is also finalized. So it's going to be a really busy week for me.
No doubt about it. And as always, my friend, it's great to have you here on your Thursdays. Which cup of coffee are you on?
This is number one. And that's how you know that I'm still on vacation mode. Because This is my first one. That means I woke up a little later. And the only reason why I didn't get on quickly is because I was trying to talk to a source about some potential stuff that I need to break something in your show. I promised you that I was going to break something in your show, and I'm going to do it. I'm going to work hard this whole week, try to get you something good for Thursday.
As always, my friend, it's great to catch up with you and work your sources, work your coffee, and we will catch up with you next Thursday. Great to have you back, Niko.
Thank you, sir. Have a good one.
All right. That is Niko Moreno, as always, from El Rolo and W on the 280 character app. And Soccer Bar, at the Soccer Bar, and at Sports Pulso. So we got Niko back up and running. We turned the keys on that car and got it moving. A couple of things before we go, and it's newsy stuff, and it's stuff to kind of keep an eye on. From our friends at the Times, Nottingham Forest could face FFP. Everton risk a second penalty because now with the fast tracking. Premier League clubs will learn in the next 2 weeks if they face charges for a new breach of financial rules, with Forest seen as experts being the most at risk. Sailing close to the wind, according to our friends at the Times. That's their phraseology. And when it's Martin Ziegler, you know that this is big. Heavy spending while in the championship and since winning promotion concerns Everton could face a second charge in consecutive seasons of breaching profit and sustainability rules. Charges for straightforward breaches fast-tracked and dealt with by early April. Any points deductions applied to this campaign. Everton charged last season but had a 10-point penalty imposed in November. So that meant that all clubs had to submit accounts for 22-23 by December 31st. Any charges are going to be announced in the next 10 days. A club will have 2 weeks to respond. Hearing by an independent commission must be concluded by April 8. Appeals have to be completed by the end of the season. Clubs can make a maximum loss of £105 million over a rolling 3-year period, £35 million a year. If a club has been in the EFL during those years, the amount of losses allowed is even smaller. Forest would be limited to losses of £61 million, 13 for the years in the championship, and then 35 for last year when they were in the Prem. Forest made a loss of $45.6 million in 21-22, $15.5 million the season before. In both years, the club spent double the amount on wages they earned in turnover. Although promotion to the Prem boosted their income by £90 million, the club spent heavily on transfers after promotion. The wage bill will have rocketed too. One legal expert with experience of FFP said he expects another club apart from Everton to be charged. Kieran Maguire believes Forest have the most to fear. And they are also looking at the transfer of John Joe Shelvey. Did they violate rules there? Shelvey initially was supposed to be a loan. Then it was published as an outright sale to Rizespor. That would be a no-no. Have to keep an eye on that. Chelsea, keep an eye on them as well when it comes to FFP violations. and all of that. West Ham took out payday loans apparently for early access to the Declan Rice funds, and so keep an eye on that when it comes to our friends at West Ham and see what's going on there. Really quickly, let's see what else is going on in the papers. We'll keep an eye on everything going forward. According to John Durden at The Guardian, Steven Gerrard is shielded by his status, but Al Ettifaq job is in the balance. Remember, he was supposed to be, he was looked at, they hadn't won in 9, and there's some concerns there mid-table. Rumor mill has Jose Mourinho to be the new Brazil manager. That has already been quashed. So do not look for that as a possibility going forward when it comes to the new manager for Brazil, which is what they're looking for. They are looking for something, and as of right now, it is not going to be Jose Mourinho. Diniz is still the interim, and so keep an eye on Diniz. Crystal Palace has been told the price for the Peterborough United wonder Ronnie Edwards. Peterborough is holding out for £10 million for the 20-year-old defender, one of the most admired players in year one. It's for that reason they've set such a high price. Also, the fact that Barnet have a 50% sell-on clause, 50% of the pass, and Edwards has just 18 months on his contract. So keep an eye on that possibility as well. Manchester City got good news on Erling Haaland, 19 goals in all comps, pictured in training with the squad ahead of their match going up against Huddersfield on Sunday in the FA Cup weekend. Jeremy Doku has missed the last 8 matches with a muscular injury. He also has trained with teammates as well. So good news there for all of those folks. Scanning quickly once again before we go, because we are in plus time and they have held up the banner for all of us as we get ready for the end of the day and get you ready for tomorrow. Jack Grealish is expected to play for Manchester City after his house has been burgled, and they're still trying to figure out what happened there. Bournemouth winger Hamed Traore was supposed to be a part of the Ivorian squad for AFCON, but now he won't be a part of it. It is a long-term absentee after spending time in the hospital with malaria. So he will not be a part of the AFCON squad there. Once again, blowing through and trying to see if there's anything else that was missed in any other, and I think we're good. I think we've got everybody. I think we've got all the news. And once again, we went over the gossip, rumor, and innuendo. Dell, I do, but not very well. Dell wants to know if I play Fantasy Premier League. I do. Right now, and like I said, I just do it for, craps and giggles. But my fantasy roster, and I do it through the Premier League system. But right now, I am in the top 40% internationally. Of 10.5 million players, my overall rank is 4.5 million. So I had some injuries and some stuff, and obviously not having Erling Haaland healthy has not helped at all. So last week I had a final point total of 69. Nice. So I do. I just don't play it very well. 1.3 million. Man, good on you. Yeah, I mean, and just I always start out slow, and then I have to take the full squad, blow up and start over. I have to do that. But yeah, traditionally I always end up like in the top 25%, but this year it's been bad. So Fantasy Premier League this year, and I have not agreed. A couple of programming notes. Later today, we're going to catch up with UConn head coach Christopher Bondi and get his thoughts on Jaden Hibbert, the number 1 draft pick for Atlanta United in the Super Draft. So we're gonna pick Coach Bondi's brain about his keeper and what he has seen when it comes to the growth of that particular player. And that interview with Coach Bondi will be up later today. And once again, after the show is over, the show will go up on audio on the app and on the web. We'll post the segments with Niko and with Laurel Pfahler. That's going to bug me for a while. With Laurel later today, and so you can listen back to those. If you don't want to listen to the whole show, we can listen to the bits and pieces as we go. And so those will be posted this afternoon, as well as the interview with Christopher Bondi, the head coach at UConn. I have some other interviews that we are chasing, and we're always chasing stuff as well. So thanks to all of you guys for hanging out with us for another round of SDH. We'll be back at it again 9:05 tomorrow morning. Hopefully we get to catch up with our friends from Beyond Goals Mentoring. We'll see if either Greg Garza or Michael Parkhurst can join us, and maybe Cap can wear his new jersey from Rhode Island Football Club. And that was pretty sweet. The one with Breeze on the front cover. That's a very, very cool jersey. We're going to see if we can get some of those. But anyway, we'll see if we can catch up with our friends at Beyond Goals Mentoring tomorrow. We'll continue to discuss what's going on with all the transfers, whatever else is on your mind when it comes to Atlanta United and all that. So for everybody here at SDH, for Niko, for Laurel, for Jarrett, for you guys, I'm just John. Thanks for hanging out with us for another round of SDH. Because it is the end of the show, means I get to do this. Mucha plata, y'all. Play it safe. We'll be back at it again, 9:05 tomorrow morning.